Hey y'all, Taylor Lauren here. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about my life as a beauty queen, as a wife, and as a mama. So if any of that content interests you, then just keep on watching. First, y'all, thank y'all so much for 200 subscribers. I know that that's a small number to some, but it is a big milestone for me. I think at the time that I'm filming, I have 205. My goal was to have 200 by the end of 2022. And now that I've reached 200, I'm bumping it up to 215. So now I'm at 205. I only have 10 more subscribers to go until I reach my personal goal. So thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed and has been enjoying the content. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. I really, really do appreciate it. And as a wife and as a mom who is also trying to maintain her individuality, I very much so appreciate y'all subscribing and engaging and supporting. So thank you. Y'all, in today's video, it's going to be a pageant video, and now that I have competed in my first Mrs. Pageant, and now that my reign as Mrs. Georgia All-Star United States 2022 is coming to a close, I thought I would do a review video with y'all and just talk about the biggest differences that I have experienced in Miss versus Mrs. pageants. I think that this could also apply to Ms. pageants as well. The bulk of my pageant experience has been as a Miss, M-I-S-S. I started competing when I was 15. When Corey and I got married, I was 27. So in the universal realm of Miss, I still had a year that I could compete in the Miss division, and it was very hard making that decision, but I decided, hey, this man loves me, he wants to marry me now, I love him. There is a division for Mrs. Contestants, for women who are married in pageantry, so I'm gonna leave my Miss life behind and continue pageantry as a Mrs. And I did have some concerns. I was concerned about the money. I was concerned about my age and just kind of where I was in life and the wisdom and life experiences that I had thus far. But overall, I still think that it was an amazing experience. I walked away with second runner-up at the national level. So let's go ahead and get into the biggest differences that I noticed and what I have taken away from them and how I will be choosing to move forward in pageantry. Y'all, so the biggest difference that I noticed in Mrs. Pageantry right off the bat was money and status. And this honestly was my biggest concern because when I competed in my first Mrs. Pageant, Corey and I had been married for a year and 3 months, but it was 8 months. So I was literally a new wife, a new mom. Typically in Mrs. Pageants, you are seeing women who are more established in life. Their children are typically older. And they have, big, amazing careers. They have charities that they've been working with for years and for years and for years. So I did seek out advisement or guidance on, if I was too fresh, too young to be competing in a Mrs. Pageant. And a lot of the advice I got was, yeah, if I were you, I would hold off a few years, maybe like a year or two, and really kind of get some life experience under your belt. Now, I do think that was the reason that I did not win, but I also think that there's nothing like doing your due diligence, and once you've done that and taken all of the advice that you've been given and decide for yourself whether or not you think you're ready for this opportunity. For me, I said, hey, I'm confident now. I know obviously that there's some growing that I can do as a wife, as a mom, as a community member, but doing it now and having that experience for myself will really help me see where I fall and how I, could improve. And I'm glad I did it because I did walk away with the placement. But off the bat, money and status was the biggest difference that I noticed. Like, when you're married and when you're a wife, you have more responsibility. There's sometimes more financial responsibility and financial obligations. And these women were like career women, entrepreneurial women, business women, housewives who were really just, rocking it and holding it down. And money, it was almost as if for some women, money was no object. And if you got it like that, honey, you got it like that. But I will say for me, as a new wife, as a new mom, as a newlywed who was just, we're just starting to build like our financial footing together and all of that, it was intimidating. It was definitely intimidating, competing with women who, had their own businesses for like 20 plus years, or married very well financially, or what have you. And it was different. It was different for me. And so having the money, or having had all of this time to build financial wealth, and I'm just starting out, that was a bit intimidating. And then also, y'all, Mrs. Pageants just cost more money. Like the entry fee was more. And it all goes, for me, it all goes back to just the life experience. And as a Mrs., you've gone through more things in life, so you've had more time to build a solid financial foundation. So I guess that's the reasoning for the expectation of finances just being higher. But yeah, the entry fee was definitely more money. I think the entry fee for this particular pageant that I competed in was a little over $1,000. And competing as a Miss, I had never paid more than $500 or $600 for an entry fee, and the bulk of my experience was in the Miss America organization, and and I competed back in the 1.0 days. So once you hit like a certain threshold, back when I was competing, it was the $400 that needed to be raised for Children's Miracle Network. Once you raised that, you were good for the entire season of competing in prelims. So for that to be doubled, essentially competing as a Mrs., I was like, wow. And I never really fundraised or asked for money before I got sponsorships. When I started competing in pageants, I was working, and I just figured, hey, if this is something that I want to do, then I need to be able to, support that financially. So I was a college student, I was working, and I would just, pay my Children's Miracle Network requirements out of my check from work. But honey, competing in Mrs. Pageants has made me consider, seeking out sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. Just because it is more expensive, and it is something that you really do have to save and plan for. And y'all, that's just the entry fee. You still need lodging and your wardrobe and all that kind of stuff. So because of that, moving forward, I am saying, hey, I no more than 2 pageants a year, because that's what I can afford to do right now. And when I say 2 pageants, I mean like something maybe super local, and then something that will take me to nationals, whether that be a state that goes to nationals or just going to nationals on an appointed title. So the money and the status of money was definitely like a big difference that I noticed. And of course you have like girls in the Miss division who, come from money or what have you, but it's different when you're a minor and then when you're like an actual adult making this money on your own, talking about this money like this is something that you're doing, not something that, your parents are paying for. So that was like one of the biggest differences. I would say the second biggest difference that I noticed going from Miss to Mrs. was just like the confidence and knowing that pageantry isn't everything. Like if you don't win, it's not the end of the world. And I've always tried to have this mindset because stereotypically, like I started competing in pageants late. I didn't start till I was like 15, and that was super local pageants. I didn't dedicate myself to a system until I was probably like 20, 21. So I've always tried to have the mindset that, hey, yes, pageantry is a big part of my life, but if it doesn't go my way, if this part of my life doesn't go my way, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, and it doesn't mean that the other parts of my life aren't important and that I'm not being purposeful there. I will say, what I've noticed about Mrs. Pageants is that women who compete in Mrs. Pageants are just starting. Like, out of all the women that I competed with, I had the most pageant experience, and all of these other women, no one had done more than 5 pageants. I think the average number between them maybe had been like 3. So in my experience, women who are competing in Mrs. Pageants are like new to pageantry. So they have all of these other things, their work, their family life, their community service that has been there before they have started competing in pageants. And I think when you compete as a miss, there is this pressure of like trying to beat the clock, trying to win that dream title before you age out. And it's just a lot of pressure. But there isn't that pressure in Mrs. because as long as you're married, you can compete. You're not trying to, beat a clock. And even still, if you're not married, there is still MS, there is still Ms. And so just the confidence that the women had and just being there to have fun and to reach their personal development goals and not having the pressure of feeling like you have to beat a clock or you have to get this title before you age out. It's your last year. Like, we've all been there. If you competed as a miss, there wasn't any of that, and it just made everything so refreshing and fun. And it was the epitome of every woman being in her own lane. And that was probably my favorite part, because just it's one thing when you feel, particular pressures for yourself, but I think it's also very evident when you can see in another contestant that they're trying to overcome particular societal pressures when it comes to pageantry, whether it be, trying to win before you age out, whether it be body image or anything like that. And in my experience, just competing in this one Mrs. Pageant, I didn't experience any of that or get that vibe from anyone. It was just kind of like, it's like every woman knew that obviously she was there for a reason, but there were other things in her life that were just as important, if not more, and that she was still purposeful, that she was still about her business, that she was still a queen, no matter what happened at the pageant. Like, that confidence there was evident, and I think that just comes with time and with life experience. So that was just very refreshing. I think the confidence of everyone in the Mrs. division was just so genuine because, that pressure wasn't there, and no one's trying to beat a clock. Okay, y'all, so the next thing that I noticed that kind of took me aback was traveling alone. So my mom and my best friend did go with me. My mom came to help out with Blair, obviously, and my best friend came to support me and to kind of be there for me in my first Mrs. Pageant, because Corey wasn't able to come because he had just started a new job, so he didn't have the time at work. A lot of these women that I competed with came by themselves, left their husband and their kids at home, and was just like, I'm gonna do this for me. This is my me time. They really saw it kind of like a little vacation, and that was just odd for me. Because with this being my first Mrs. Pageant, I didn't know what to expect. I'm trying to remove things about Miss, but there are still some things that are, there. And I didn't know how things were going to go until, I got to the pageant. And when you're a Miss, you have like your army, honey. You have your support system. You have, your mom who's your day one, who's usually there. All of your people are showing up to support you. You got like, you can't have anybody in the dressing room, but you have people nearby on standby in case, you forget something or you need something. And this just wasn't like that. Like the women were very, very independent. And that just like took me aback. I was like, no one is here with you. But that was just, something from Miss that I had to, let go of and to readjust. And I don't know if that's like standard for Mrs. Pageants or if this was just, the particular one that I competed in. But there was like a high level of, independence. And, these women were, coming by themselves. They said they left their husband and their kids at home. This was, going to be their time. And I was just like, well, what happens like if you win and like they're not here? Like, would you like want to share that with them? And they were just like, it is what it is. Like if I win, I'll go back home and we'll celebrate, yada yada yada. So I thought that was interesting. And looking back at it, I'm kind of glad that I placed with that I didn't win, because with this being my first Mrs. Pageant, and if I did win, like I would have wanted my husband to be there. But that's just me. So that was another like big difference that I noticed. Okay, y'all, so those were pretty much the top 3 differences that I noticed going from Miss to Mrs. I will say I thought, as far as the competition goes, like on stage competition, everything was pretty standard. I think the biggest difference between Miss and Mrs. or Miss is mindset. My interview was pretty standard as well. Obviously, like talking about my family and my husband is something that's different, but just the same thing still applies as far as your mindset, your why, and just knowing, your purpose and things like that. I do think that in my interview, the judges were taken aback that I was so young and so new, because I will say I'm 28. Yeah, I'm 28. And I was the youngest contestant in my division. And I think the oldest contestant was maybe in her 60s. So as you can see, Mrs. is a wide spectrum. And I don't think that in the Mrs. division that people are used to seeing such a new wife and such a new mom as myself. But I love pageantry and I know the value that I bring, and I was like, why wait to compete if I know that I can do a good job and if I know that it's going to help me progress even further? You know what I mean? So, because I looked at it like, at the end of it all, if I place second runner-up in my first Mrs. Pageant, if I continue on and if I continue prep, that national title just gets closer and closer. So why prolong achieving a goal if I can go ahead and start now? So that's just how I looked at it. And now I just want to share my thoughts with the system overall with y'all. So all in all, I love the All-Star United States system. I do plan on going back. I am going to take 2023 off just to reset and to really plan out how I want to prep moving forward. We also just moved and we have some financial goals that we want to meet. Blair just turned 1, so she's a very active toddler and I want to soak up all of those moments with her as well. So I do plan on going back. All in all, this system is definitely in my top 3 of systems and pageant experiences that I have had. If you are looking for a system to compete in, I definitely recommend that you check them out. I would try to leave the website in the description box below. Everything from when I signed up to when I hit the stage was just seamless. The director, Miss Tammy, she's amazing. She's very organized, very communicative, very sweet. She is the epitome of like firm but kind. I just have nothing but good things to say. They have a wide variety of age divisions, and in my personal opinion, y'all, I don't understand why they're not bigger than what they are. Just like the organization, the show, the prize package, the connections that they have, they are a system that is definitely quality over quantity. I wish that they were bigger, but after competing and getting to know them, they are definitely, I would say, selective about the contestants and the queens that they have. Like, they are small but mighty. Like, this system, they got it, and they don't have to. I think that they should, but because I just want everyone to know about them, but they don't have to, like, chat their system up, because they are truly quality over quantity. They're okay if, like, everyone doesn't know who they are, because they stress having quality contestants, and I'm just honored that I was able to represent them this year. Now, I do plan on going back, and I highly recommend that y'all check them out if you are looking for a system. I will leave the website in the description box below. The pageant is in Savannah every year. It is amazing, beautiful experience. Just, I don't have anything bad to say. I think it is a fabulous system, and I plan on going back because I really, really, really would love to be on their national court, and their prize package is really, really good. So that's that. But I do have some other systems that are on my radar, and the first being Earth. I did compete in that system as a Miss, and I did enjoy that experience, and their Mrs. division seems to be popping as well. I'm always on the fence about Mrs. America. I think we all know that it's a household name, but for me, the prize package isn't there. And I definitely believe in getting a return on my investment as a contestant. I also started out in MAO, where I racked up a lot of scholarship money. So I think starting out in MAO really spoiled me, because I'm expecting a great prize package or scholarships or grants or something. And for me, Mrs. America, just being Mrs. America and being a household name just isn't enough for me. I need to get a return on my investment, and their prize package is kind of like non-existent to me. And I'm the type of person, if I can go on your website and if I can see the dates and if I can see how much it costs to compete, but the prize package is nowhere to be found, it is a no for me. Like, if I go to the website, but if I'm still searching for pertinent information, it's a wrap. So I'm always on the fence about that one. There is another system, I think it's Ultimate International, that also has a Mrs. division, and I believe that they partner with Hollis College or University in the Carolinas, I believe. So they seem to have a really good prize package as well. I also I'm really starting to get into systems that have multiple age divisions, because I think that mentorship is so important in having those relationships, and I really like that. And Ultimate International is new and up and coming, but they seem to be doing very well. So yeah, y'all, that's it. Those are my thoughts. Those are the biggest differences that I noticed going from Miss to Mrs., and just systems that I personally have my eye on. Feel free to check them out as well if you're trying to find a system to check out or become dedicated to. And I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.